Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sarah Pellegrino, Customer Success Manager for Wellness Space Brands, and I am thrilled to welcome you all to this month's webinar, The Impact of Wellness Spaces Transforming the Fitness Industry. Wellness is not just a trend in fitness, it's a prominent fixture in the trajectory of health and fitness. I am thrilled to be joined by two fitness pioneers and legends who are going to walk us through their thoughts on wellness and fitness, the wellness-driven decisions they've made in business, and what they believe the future holds for wellness and recovery. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jeff Zwiefel, former COO and President of Lifetime and current Executive Director of Miura, Longevity and Performance for Lifetime. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, how are you, Sarah? It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's such an honor. Thank you for joining us today. And I'd also like to introduce Mr. Pat Regan, former Vice President of Lifetime Procurement. Pat, it is so wonderful to see you.
Thank you, Sarah. It's my pleasure. Good to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. So before we dive in, we have some great content for you all today. Pat, do you mind just giving our listeners quick background of how long you and Jeff have worked together and just your different roles and how you guys have worked hand in hand over the years?
Jeff told me beforehand to soften that so we didn't age ourselves, but Jeff and I have worked together in industry for 35 years or so and have built a partnership that he's probably my closest friend in the industry. We worked seamlessly when we were at Lifetime together, and I was kind of the art and the vendor relations part of the business, and Jeff was the science, and we built a really good partnership over the years, and it was I think very impactful for Lifetime, and hopefully continues to be impactful well into the future for what we've done in the past.
That is so cool. Thank you for sharing that. All right, so Jeff, I'm coming to you first, sir. We're gonna get into the wellness and fitness conversation, but I do want to start off with wellness as a continuum of health. So can you just share with our listeners, what does wellness and its physiological benefits mean to you?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I think we start with the broader kind of concept of wellness, and you go back in time historically, and I think the term itself kind of was a misunderstood reputation for a couple of different reasons. It was extremely broad and vague, number one. Number two, the science behind many of the approaches were still in their relative infancy. And at the same time, it was attached to kind of this granola crunching theme. But wellness themes that originated in the 80s range from, fad diets to the grapefruit diet, the Pritikin diet, to the aerobics classes by Jane Fonda. And fast forward to current day, and the global wellness movement and the market has really reached a dramatic tipping point. Fitness, diet, healthy living, and well-being concepts the concepts and the offerings really have proliferated wildly and have really become mainstream now. When you think, Sarah, about wellness, I think about, certainly it's the opposite of illness, but it's more than the absence of disease. Wellness is a positive, overall integrated approach to health. It's a holistic approach, a whole lifestyle to health, focusing on physical, mental, and emotional well-being. I mean, let's face it, Sarah, people now more than ever want to look better, feel better, and perform better, whatever that entails, whether it's performing their favorite sport or carrying their luggage through an airport. Wellness, I believe, is the passageway to achieve this overall objective in life. It involves the practice of balancing and a fulfilling life, including nutrition, like we said, exercise, physical activity, sleep, recovery, stress management, environmental, and even social well-being. So recovery and wellness, as we're going to talk about today, are hot topics, to be sure. The trends are significant, and it's a booming topic. For example, as we talked about before, ICE searches, as an example, have increased more than 500% from 2022 to 23. There's this new converging trend focused on integrating these highly dynamic categories such as recovery, rejuvenation, medi-spas, longevity, and concierge medicine. So the future's bright in the recovery category, and people are understanding that they can shape their own wellness journey, and the science is developing all the time. So I'd say, to close that off, Sarah, wellness is the key to allowing us to live longer, but also better, maximizing what I refer to as our health span versus our lifespan. Think about it for a second. We're living longer as a society, but we're not necessarily living better. The average American spends 14 years of their life in poor health with a compromised quality of life. We can change this by addressing the wellness space and creating optimal health.
You have teed me up so perfectly for this next question here, Jeff. Can you share with us why wellness is so important to the fitness industry, what we've just set us up for, and why you were such an early adopter of bringing wellness into Lifetime locations?
I think, Sarah, you got to start with the fact that the industry of wellness as a whole is a vast category in contrast to the health club industry, candidly. I've been in the health club industry, as Pat said earlier, almost 40 years. The wellness industry in the US is a $328 billion segment, with growth estimated to be almost $400 billion by 2026. Versus the health club industry in the US, that's about a $30 billion industry. So the message to operators is to grab a piece of this broader and high growth wellness segment, and the clubs are uniquely positioned to grow their market share by participating in this opportunity squarely. We as an operator hold the tools to really engage the customer in their wellness journey. When you think about Lifetime, with our 1.5 million members that are highly educated, they're affluent, and they understand and embrace the connection between optimal health, wellness, and lifestyle. In a recent survey that we did amongst 400,000 of our Lifetime members, here's what they said. 95% said they're interested in wellness improvement, but only half of them, by contrast, were seeking help from current traditional healthcare providers. Second, 90% said they were interested in longevity and performance to improve their wellness. And third, 83% said they're currently engaging in services and programs such as cold therapy, red light recovery, and supplements and so on. So for Lifetime, it was a no-brainer to add recovery services in our membership offering. We had a clear and obvious need for us to position ourselves with a differentiated way by extending in recovery as part of our membership value prop to help drive new member revenue growth and improve retention. There's no doubt it helped us improve and grow our personal training revenue. So these types of services allow an operator to provide and connect with engaged members in new ways. I think it's a tremendous way to drive more revenue per membership and improve retention rates. It's also a component of allowing us to support the justification, candidly, of increased dues and margin expansion of our clubs.
Absolutely, 100%. And it's, I love the survey numbers from your members. That's so awesome. They were clearly ready for wellness as well. So that's wonderful. Pat, I'm coming to you, sir. Can you walk us through what type of wellness and recovery products a member can expect to find in a Lifetime?
Well, there are a plethora of tools out there, as everybody knows, and vibration technology, like a power plate type. I don't want to call out particular manufacturers' names, but vibration tools. And we call them tools at Lifetime because they're tools we give our trainers and our members utilize to seek that healthy way of life that Jeff was just talking about. So there's percussive tools that are incredibly impactful, and once trained, the members can easily grab those and use them without or with trainer instruction or on their own once they're educated. Compression tools that really help, and you need a chair or a bed or a table to sit on for those. But hydro massage products are getting overwhelming at all of our clubs. The utilization of those products is through the roof, to be honest with you. And I know it's a shameless plug, but it's really true. Cold plunge, red light therapy, PEMFs, the dynamic stretching that Lifetime's doing as part of that package. They're hitting it with great success and rolling out a dynamic stretch program for all the members. So, I mean, I think those, you can certainly say the hyperbaric chambers, the electric cryo. I don't know, Jeff, am I thinking if I'm missing any other tools majorly? So, I mean, that's kind of what the world looks like regarding tools for us to use at Lifetime to help on the wellness journey for our members.
What I love about that too, Pat, we've discussed this offline, but there's really something for everybody, right? So it really does build with the wellness offerings that you all have available at your locations, which is so great.
That's right, Sarah. I mean, whether you're the free floater and you're just walking around the club and you want to utilize that, or you're engaged with a trainer for the education and purposeful commitment to show up every day and do the work. There are tools that really anybody can use.
That's awesome. Jeff, Pat and I have discussed the topic of wellness offerings at length, right? So I'm very curious what your opinion is on nice to haves versus the must haves.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm sure you guys have had plenty of conversation about this subject, because I think it is a continuum, as we've talked as well, Sarah, and I certainly respect and understand as operators, you've got a kind of crawl, walk, run as you enter into these new segments of the business. But we also got to think about the dimensions of recovery, kind of like I think we've historically thought about the foundational elements of cardiovascular training, resistance training, and flexibility training. This is a new dimension that I think stands, as firm and stable and opportunistic as any of those long-standing components that we've, operated within for many, many years. So when you talk about the category of recovery and rejuvenation, Sarah, I think it's continuing to advance and grow rapidly, as we talked about. Technology, the scientific evidence around the efficacy of the various modalities that Pat was talking about. I believe it becomes a continuum of products and services, starting with these foundational tools ranging from, the basic foam rollers to, as Pat said, the vibration platforms, to the percussion and compression therapy, to the assisted stretching like PNF and muscle activation or mat stretching. And then you also progress to involving the heat therapies, obviously as a foundational with sauna, infrared, as well as hydromassage and cryo lounges. So I think the next level of progression of more advanced theories in the continuum includes tools like red light beds, cryotherapy, various forms of float therapy, hyperbaric chambers, and PEMF tools, as Pat said. These are becoming increasingly more expensive as an operator to own and to operate, requiring, labor, staff training, and expertise. And that's why I would sort of characterize and rank them in that level of progression, Sarah.
That's great, Jeff. Thank you so much for your input there. Pat, coming back to you on the importance of staff training. So we've mentioned it briefly, but when we talk about staff training and buy-in when introducing wellness and recovery into a fitness facility, what are your thoughts on that topic? Do you have any helpful, tips and tricks for our listeners on how to do that well?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of us that are like-minded in this. Mike Feeney had brought it up in an earlier conversation, and he feels passionate about it, as do I, and as does Jeff. I mean, this is something that is a burgeoning trend, and it needs a little education. People need to get a little comfortable with it. They don't quite understand it, but it is incredibly impactful for their health span. And I think it's if you really want to be successful, and I'll give an example at Lifetime, we put the cryo lounge in, and for the first couple of months, and I don't mean to, again, shamelessly plug here, but it didn't get a lot of use. And then we trained the trainers, and now it's almost neck and neck with the hydro lounge. I mean, it is really getting used because people understand it, they believe in it, it's not intimidating to them. I also think it's important that operators, if they're going to get into this segment in this category, they don't hide this. Lifetime puts it right out in the open. And a lot of their clubs that they retrofitted, you walk up the stairs and it's right off the stairs. It's in plain view. It's something that should be advertised. And I'll tell you why. These units can be super impactful to the operators in their attrition numbers and stemming the tide of attrition. When you're supplying them with these tools, and some of them are a little expensive, but they're things they can't get at home. You know, with the advent of COVID, a lot of people went out and bought home fitness equipment. They can do some training at home, but they can't do the hydro massage. They can't do the red light therapy. They can't do some of these very impactful modalities. And so it brings them into the club and creates that stickiness and glue. So it it stems the tide of attrition, lowers attrition, and you get more swipes per month with the same member because they want to come back. It's such a pleasing experience.
Yeah, and I just add to that, that lifetime, I don't know if it's correlative or not, Sarah, but the company's never experienced the high usage per membership like we have, and the all-time low attrition rates that we've experienced. So certainly, as Pat said, this is just another way, I think, for us to connect and engage and improve the value prop.
I love everything about what you both have just mentioned. As someone that spends her days in training and in education primarily, it's so important. Pat, you said something, I just want to expand upon it. Training your staff is one thing, but making sure your staff knows how to use all of these wellness tools and has tried them themselves can really change the game, because then they have personal testimonials. They can, if it's a personal trainer, they can go to their clients and say, I use this on my back, or I use this and it helped my neck. It could help yours too.
Right.
So
it's a simple formula, Sarah. Here's what it is.
Yep.
Here's how it works. And here's why that's important to you. And if your staff knows that and they can convey that message and deliver that message to their members, it really connects the dots, and it's very impactful.
That's awesome. Really, really cool. And thank you for the lead into the member retention piece, because it really, when your team is trained and educated, and it's going to snowball, and it's going to snowball positively. So thank you both. Jeff, if a fitness business has yet to incorporate wellness into their service offering, what would you tell them today?
Yeah, I think I'd go back initially to, highlight Lifetime's historical view of how we've seen the opportunity to open up the aperture of healthy living and healthy aging space versus the very limited and smaller fitness market by contrast, as I mentioned earlier. The research shows now clearly that 60%, again, this is all boutique fitness owner, currently or plan to offer recovery services in the next year. I mean, I think it's fairly obvious that they're doing it for a couple simple reasons. The customer is demanding it, and they're gonna create better value and differentiation for their product. 2, drive unit level economics. I mean, the additional revenue streams, the better revenue per membership and revenue per square foot. So at the end of the day, I think it's important, like we've talked about, Sarah, that your members, as we all know as operators, and that the recovery industry is moving at an exponential pace. And you need to continue to survey your members. You need to try demo units in your clubs, and you need to test and experiment. And you need to go see what your competition's doing and talk to some other operators that are having success with it and or having challenges with it, and why. So I think it's a great opportunity for an operator to really explore.
I love that you said survey, Jeff, because we hear that a lot, right? My members don't, they don't want that. And well, have you asked, right? Like it's such a valid question. Let's not forget that, yes, it's 2024, but a survey still exists, and you can get a lot of really, really helpful insight into your members and what they're wanting from your business. So great, great points, Jeff. Pat, is there anything that you would share with an operator? Same question, just any thoughts above and beyond what Jeff's mentioned?
Well, I'll sure tell him what Jeff said about testing and doing some R&D. I mean, it's about the member's point of view. Lifetime and many other club operators are maniacally focused on the member point of view. And if I'm a manufacturer, I'm searching that information. If I'm an operator, I'm searching out that information, because if you find it and you deliver it, that's the end of the rainbow. So I just think that's always been the key for me. Jeff and I have worked together for years, and he'd give me a challenge, or we're looking at this business, and go out, and we had a very robust 5-stage gate R&D test process that we took very seriously at Lifetime when I was there, and it was always bear great fruit for Lifetime. The whole business is built on innovation and taking risks, and I wouldn't necessarily call this category a risk any longer, but it's new. And so no one likes change. Change is uncomfortable, but change is inevitable. So I think this is, I guess that's my answer to the question.
That's great. Thanks so much, Pat. And Pat, we're getting down to what you do best, my friend. What type of wellness products and therapies, I'll add that in there too, have caught your eye at trade shows this past year? What is really impressing you in the market right now?
Yeah, Jeff and I have had many discussions on this lately, and we were at the Health Fitness Association show, formerly URSA, and frankly, we were both surprised that there weren't as many product offerings at that show. And as you dig into it, if you went to an actual show that was it's focused on wellness, it's wall-to-wall products like this, right? Whereas you go to URSA, there's maybe a few booths. And I think vendors are recognizing that it's an emerging channel, and they have to pay attention to it and figure that out. And I think operators are also understanding its impact and validity in their space. So that's coming together. I think, there's great products out now. I keep on going we love your products. I know many people do. Red light, I think, is a really hot topic right now, and has proven to be a real success, as is different types of cold therapy, cold plunges. It's harder for operators to engage that, because you need electricity, you need proper drainage, you need to filter the water. All of those are challenges, but I'm quite sure the industry will solve those in the future. But I guess that's my relaxation, sleep, recovery. All of those products are going to start infiltrating the fitness industry, as we used to call it, and it's going to be called the wellness industry. I mean, fitness is kind of, I think, a really old school term. It's just more encompassing than that.
100%. That's so good, Pat. Thank you for sharing. And Jeff, if you can, continue on with what Pat has mentioned. So specifically with the red light and the cold therapies, right? And I come back to red light. I feel like it's something that it's a term that we're using. It's always in the wellness discussions. Can you, with your exercise physiology background, describe some of the benefits of red light and cold therapy as well? But just for our listeners, if they have yet to Google it or look into it themselves.
Yeah, the really kind of exciting and dynamic part of this category is the far-reaching sort of scientific and efficacious benefits that are starting to be becoming identified in a lot of these different modalities. So, the opportunity for us to continue to study and validate how they're working and how they're improving various components. I mean, when we think about today's society and this concept of metaflammation, this chronic inflammation, and you talk about how it's impacting so many elements of illnesses and infection. So, from cold therapy to red light, red light, improving circulation, improving mood, improving the health of the skin and the collagen. So there are far-reaching benefits, let alone, what it's doing potentially to improving circulation and improving oxygen delivery and nutrients to the muscles. So I think, when you think about this category, it's pretty doggone amazing when will start documenting more and more of those physiological benefits.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you walking us through that. And can you share with us, Jeff, your Miura concept with our listeners and just a little bit about when and where they can find that going forward?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I think, I just start, like so many of our listeners are so well in tune with. And the reason we're so passionate about this wellness category, Pat and I, yourself, and everybody on this call, I think it's just an opportunity when we look at the society. I read a stat the other day, a fascinating, very alarming Dutch study. We found that adults are 15 years older than their parents and grandparents were at the same age. So think about that. It illustrates the impact of our modern day lifestyle of poor diet, stress, lack of quality sleep, to name just a few factors. Our body's genes in today's society are under this amazing pressure than ever before and aging us prematurely. But we believe that Miura is a natural extension of what Lifetime is doing. So we put together this really comprehensive and personalized and integrated MD, personal trainer, registered dietitian that addresses all aspects of it. An optimized health approach. It starts with a health concierge team collecting this symptomology to understand how you're feeling and performing. Then we conduct the diagnostic blood draw with almost 100 biomarkers. This feeds into our proprietary metabolic code, first cloud-based solution in the field of integrated medicine, computing thousands of evidence-based algorithms to generate a personalized wellness plan. So then the code breaks it down into 5 triads. We do adrenal, thyroid, and pancreas. We do gut, immune, and brain. We do cardio, pulmonary, neurovascular, and liver, lymph, and kidney, and estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And then we build a lifestyle plan for you. So you do the metabolic code, you got the health coaching, we offer IV therapies, we do hormones, we do peptides, we do rejuvenation, aesthetics, and nutritional supplements. We're in the pilot state still in our downtown 150,000 square foot location in Target Center. And we're planning to roll out a hub and spoke model across the 180 some Lifetime portfolios the rest of 2024 and beyond. So it's an exciting time for us.
That is so incredible. And I shared with you that I've seen that location. I was just blown away. So really is just, that future of wellness in the fitness space. You've done it and it's incredible. So if you're in that area, please go check it out and look up Miura. Pat, in your opinion, if we fast forward next year, 2026, going forward, what does wellness in the fitness industry look like to you?
Well, I've mentioned in my last statement, I think fitness is gonna morph into wellness. And as I take a look at, Jeff had mentioned earlier as he was going through his presentation that 90% of diseases have stress as a factor. And so, we can't underscore the need for sleep, certainly the need for nutrition, the need for movement and exercise, but mental health, I think, is going to be something that, and I know that's a big word, encompasses a lot, but I think there's, for stress relieving, I think a focus in this industry on mental health is going to be one of the major ways forward. And certainly relaxation tools, and red light therapy, heat therapy, those are all things that are calming and help people recenter and relax. And I don't care if you're an athlete, competitive athlete, or just a Joe Schmo like me. Everyone needs that relaxation opportunity. And I do feel like the industry is moving that way. It'll never leave. We're never going to stop doing Olympic training and Olympic movements with half racks and dumbbells, and people are going to run on treadmills. But I think this category that everybody's calling wellness today, that's the major new discovery. It's yes, we have cardio when we lay out our clubs. Yes, we have strength training and all those modalities, but then there's wellness, and that wellness, whether it's stretching and all the other tools and modalities Jeff mentioned, that's a really big category. You know what? It wasn't 5 years ago. So I think that's where the ball is going. Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Pat. I think, the science, I think, will lead and continue to advance at, as I said, this exponential rate, and continue to validate the need for wellness that will continue to become stronger and more better documented. Consumers in today's world, I think, will continue to become more savvy and demanding that wellness be an integral part of their experiences. I think they're going to see continued growth and advancement of course, personalized experience that connect all the components of an individual's overall wellness: sleep, stress, nutrition, physical activity, agnostic systems. I think technology and AI, of course, will continue to rapidly enable better data-specific program design that works best for the individual and helps us validate results in order to continue to gain more powerfully established predictive protocols in the go forward to truly optimize somebody's health.
Such incredible points. Oh my gosh, thank you both so much for the insights that you have shared with us all today. I do want to pause our listeners tuning in today. If you have questions for Jeff and Pat, this would be an amazing time for you to get those into the chat. I already have one there, so I'm going to read that out. Let's see here. I have a lot. I have 3 already. Good, good, good. All right. Oh, this is a good one. Okay. So on the topic of Ozempic and weight loss drugs, what is the opinion on offering those programs in a fitness center?
Oh, we should have expected that.
Yeah.
Softball, right?
Yeah.
Popular one. Sarah, Pat and I were talking prior to this call, the headlines, right, of consumers. 1 in 8 consumers now either have or are taking one of the GLP-1 agonists. And so it's popular. It's popular for good reason. It works. There's strong data behind it. Obviously, we all know that we need to continue to study the long-term health implications of the drug, but it has been around since 2005 in treating type 2 diabetes. Clearly, the position that we have that I'd love to provide through this link to Sarah is our lifetime position statement on GLP-1 agonists, and the need for us to be thoughtful as operators to lead the charge and take control of the narrative about a comprehensive program that addresses all aspects of their health. And what I mean by that is proper nutrition, proper supervision by a medical professional, body composition, strength and resistance training, titrating the dosage up during the start of the usage of the product, titrating the dosage down so that it doesn't have to be a lifelong sentence of these expensive drugs. We all know that compounding pharmacies, high quality compounding pharmacies that we're sourcing the GLP semaglutide from and tirzepatide from for our program, again, in this comprehensive way. We're doing DEXA scans on these customers at every 3 months to really understand that body composition changes and how we can maintain lean body mass. Because as everyone knows on the call, researchers show 40% lean body mass loss with a typical Ozempic or Mounjaro user. And we need to fix that and address that. We as health club operators have the ability to control this narrative and manage that story so that consumers get the right quality, comprehensive care and service.
Perfect answer, Jeff. Thank you. All right, our second question here, this is such a good one because I do get this a lot. So obviously at Wellness Space Brands, we have the Cryo Lounge, right? So it's a way to provide that cold therapy in a health club setting. What, in y'all's opinion, is, if we take Cryo Lounge versus cryotherapy, obviously it's completely different. Can you speak to both? So, somebody starting out, obviously there's costs involved, there's staff with cryotherapy. So just kind of describing the difference in those two offerings.
Yeah. Well, I mean, product to product, I mean, you mentioned right at the start, I mean, there's a big headwind difference, price difference regarding a cryo tank with the inert gas and the Cryo Lounge. So they basically get the same effect. One is way more encompassing, obviously, and there's electric cryo too, but they're both effective, right? So if you wanted to take from an operator kind of a crawl, walk, run, look at what you're doing in your facility to meet the needs and experiment with that. Cryo Lounge, like I said, is it the answer that a competitive athlete would need? Maybe not, right? But from a typical user, it does check a lot of the boxes. So I know, and Jeff can talk about, I'd like him to talk a little bit more about the physiological differences, but from an operator, from a cost of operation, from a space, from a labor that's needed to run the operation, the handling of the inert gases, those are all things that you need to think about and have a complete thought when you're looking at those products.
Yeah, I would just add, if I can, Sarah, I think, clearly there is benefits to both. I mean, as Pat said, very, very eloquently, our electric cryo system is a $115,000 unit that we have within Miura. Sure, you get ultra low temps, and that activates this sort of fight or flight response, the brain setting up a chain beneficial results of vasoconstriction, vasodilation, rushes of blood flow to the core, vagus nerve stimulation. And, the Cryo Lounge, I think it gets 25, 30 degrees. So minor aches and pains, and general recovery can serve a really tangible and beneficial purpose as well. But again, got to understand what the desired outcome is. So hopefully that helps address that question, Sarah.
It absolutely does. And I always add in too in my trainings, like there's an intimidation factor, right? Like, leading up, if you have not tried cold therapy, Cryo Lounge is a really excellent place to start, right? It's better than just using freezer packs and, at home. It's going to be a little more effective than that. And it's a really good place to start. So I always keep that one in my back pocket as well. Our third question here coming in, it is about staff training. We've talked about the importance of it. This listener asks the frequency of staff training, and I love that question. So whoever wants to take it.
Yeah, I can kick it off and then you jump in.
Okay.
I think, for me, it really is a function of starting with the complexity of the modality and, what the product and services that you're providing should be the determination of how frequently intensive that sort of training and refresh and, or I would say certification should be. The great thing is vendors like, Hydro and Cryo Lounge provide tremendous training, and all of the vendors that we've been using are an extension of our in-house training. So we rely and work very closely with them on our staff training and the reoccurring training and working ongoing recertification so it stays fresh. And we make sure, of course, that the science is continuing to be upgraded and understood by our team members, as we refer to them at Lifetime. But I would say, generally speaking, every 6 months would be a time frame where I'd certainly do some refreshers, depending again on the complexity of the modality.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
And I'd just add to that, I love the word Jeff used. I hesitated to use it when I talked about it earlier about training and renaming it certification, because I think it's important for the operator to know that they know, right? So you can teach them that, but unless you then say, okay, let's practically apply that. Let's have a practical application demonstration, or you show me what I've just taught you, speak it back to me, show it back to me. Then you've really covered everything. But I think it's super critical for the success of any wellness area in your club. And I think it provides, it creates excitement within the staff. I mean, this is some new modalities, and who doesn't like to relax? Who doesn't like to feel great? And that's what these products do in the most simplistic form.
Absolutely. I love that you said that, Pat. I always remind the groups that I'm training, when I have big teams on, it's, everyone's very serious. I'm like, guys, this is fun, right? You're gonna learn how to really help your members. Everyone laugh a little, right? So it's important to make it fun and to make staff training fun when it comes to wellness and recovery. Hey, it's a 30-minute training, 15 minutes of it is gonna be you getting to enjoy a massage. So, while we talk to you, right? Like, just make it fun. So that's great. All right, this next question I love, and there's a lot of pieces to it. So the first piece is, if I own multiple health clubs, how do I determine which locations I should pilot first?
Yeah.
What factors are we looking at?
Well, I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
well, I mean, I'll start a little bit. I mean, it's, what's the space you have available, right? What would you have to relocate? And what is that typical user? What does the psychographic of that club's user look like? And what would you take based on that psychographic? What would you remove without getting horse kicked to put some of these products in a visible place, right? In a place that drives awareness. So that's kind of my simplistic view of, what should I do? Obviously, it's foot traffic and, who's got the most revenue, who's generating great revenue stream. And, do you have trainers in that facility versus a different facility that may be more educated or more familiar with the science behind these products? So that's my quick answer, Jeff.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's my view too. I think you start with the best demo. I would start with the richest HHIs. I'd start with the clubs with the highest performing dues revenue, generally historical revenue per membership and ancillary services. As Pat said, swipes. I think, you'd look at obviously square footage, because, at Lifetime, we had the opportunity, fortunately, to reconfigure existing real estate and make it work a lot harder for us, and better, as I said, differentiate the membership options. And I can speak from our experience as I watch our really prominent affluent member in our Dyna market, which is in the center of the Minneapolis-St. Paul marketplace. And that recovery space of the hydro massage and the cryo lounges is just nonstop. It's nonstop traffic. We had to hire, a concierge to manage that experience. We obviously have online booking capability of that recovery space, but we still need an extra person to make sure it's done that way. And so that would be my view, and then determine from there sequentially how you move it through your other clubs to make sure your return on your investment works.
And Jeff mentioned earlier in his dialogue when we started that, shop your competition. What's the competition doing? I mean, not that you want to be always responding to your competition, but you do need to be aware of it and then make good business decisions based on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the second part to this is, you've made the decision on which locations you're going to go with first. And let's say you're putting, a few products into a space that you have available. Are you teasing some of those products? Are you putting, let's just say, a hydro massage out in the open for people to try it? Or are you waiting and unveiling the whole space when it's ready? What's your opinion?
Well, I don't think you do anything with, hope's not a strategy, right? So, I don't think you do anything that says, geez, I hope this works. So hopefully they've done their R&D and done some stage gate testing on it. And they've put a test product in a location to see and observed it, and then followed it up with a questionnaire or personal questions and answers with the members, because it's always the member point of view. And so, I think we wouldn't want any operator to say, gosh, I hope this works, I'm just going to do it. I think there's got to be a complete thought strategy along with that. So
Yeah, and as we talked about, Sarah, I think my initial rollout would be, how do you carve out that starting phase that we discussed earlier of compression, percussion, foam rolling, assisted stretching, and hydro, and then how do you expand on that with cryo lounge? Then I'm working up that potential continuum to other services that are, more expensive and more complex to staff and operate, as I mentioned.
Awesome. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, that brings us to the end of our questions for today. Again, I want to thank you both so much for your time and for the insights that you have shared with us. To our listeners, thank you so much for your time. We hope you found this beneficial. I know I sure did. So thank you, and we look forward to connecting with you all soon. Take care.
Thank you.
thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.